Okay, so now I'm going to give you some of my finished interior measurements. My body is actually pretty solid at this point. I do have 4 braces in it that kind of hold the bottom out a little bit, and when I kick those loose I'm not sure what they're going to do, but at least I have measurements now that when I permanently mount it on the frame I can build my mounts to those measurements and make it all work out. Of course the top on this thing here, I can push on it. It's not going to go anywhere. It's fairly solid at this point in time. So what measurements I got is up in the corners where your doors come in on your pillar here. Oh, I have 50 and 50 and a half. Measurement at a strike, not that it really matters any unless you don't have the door jambs and you have to fabricate everything up. I roughly got 49 7/8, and then clear down at the bottom in the corner of the door what I've got is 44 3/4. Back on my wheel wells back here on the bump outs, the closest ones into the frame there, on those I actually have 44 3/4 on those also. They line up right with my door, but they're dented up a little bit, so I just kind of go back a little bit onto the hump where the clips are for mounting the fenders. Measure near those, and what I've got there is 46 1/4 inch. Rest of the measurements, as everything comes together, they just kind of fall into place. Thing to remember is this whole thing tapers. This center is your widest point of the car. It tapers to the back. I'll kind of give you an instance here. At my window sill, I got 50 1/4 on the front, and then where my down braces are, I've got 50 inches. So I've got it comes in 1/8 from front to back, and then from there it dives into that corner there. Other than that, unless your front door frames are really in bad shape, the cowl should pull itself into place, but I'll give you the measurement at the bottom of the door of what I've got, and what I've got is 37 1/8 of an inch, and that's on the bottom there. Because of the chop on this, it did affect my pillars a little bit, so my door jambs, they twisted a little bit, but not bad. I ended up having to do a little bit of bracing, but at the hinge point what I've got is 42 1/8 on that, and that's pretty much going to be the most your biggest measurements. Like I said before, that these bodies never really started out straight anyways out of the factory. But if I measure off the firewall and I come straight back to this back seam that runs down the body here, I measure to my firewall down to the point there's a little body line in there about 2 inches up from where the bottom would actually be, which is a good point to get a measurement off of, and that's from front, measuring from the firewall straight back. It's The tape's at a little bit of an angle, but that's not going to matter any. I got 94 and 1/16 of an inch on that. When I go to measure the other side here, measure that. Now this is where all this comes into play. This is something that I've been dealing with on this car from day one. Is like I said, these things, chances are they were never ever straight to begin with. On mine, I've got 93 and 5/8 on the other side, so already I'm up against the wall. Anyways, like I said, I'm already up against the wall for the fact that there is no possible way really to go through and take 100% square measurements. When I originally found that, I went through and spent quite a few hours measuring stuff up, trying to figure out where this was. And like I said, I took a string line, found the center and the back, string line all the way up to the front, and I used that on the frame so I could reference with the frame too, compared to where the body was. And the cowl front, I was happy with that. I had the mounting holes, and with measuring off of that, it was good. On the back, basically what I did was took where my two seams were at, marked the center point, knew the center point on my frame off my string line, got that lined up. So I knew at least my back was straight with my front. And then from there, what I had, like I said, I had my doors and everything on. So I had really good reveal around my doors. And visually, the car looked really good lined up. You could stand back and take my, eyeball down it. You could take and take my little board and put on there and find good lines on it. And at that point, I pretty much, after about 2 hours, gave up on trying to figure out where this thing is at. The measurements are off on that. Like I said, I did have to weld my corners in, but they were tore, so I was able to line all that back up, and I know that that difference is not in how the body's pulled onto in the corners there. It could have been a little bit of this dent that was in this wheel well that might not have gotten it out far enough and pulled into place. But like I said, visually the car looks fine. Your next thing that another thing to look at is you're measuring from that corner to that corner, that corner to that corner. And like I said, I set my laser line up and got this thing level, but after that, when I started putting everything together, next thing I started doing was taking side-to-side measurements. And I got my bar in here, and I got my bar in here, and I can measure up from the corner of my door to the top corner of my door, which I'm at 59 3/4. Flip this around and do the same thing, and I come up with the same measurement on that one. When this top is, if this top is actually in good shape and all your seams are intact, and visually your outside body lines look really good, these basically fall right into place. I really didn't do any pushing them around or anything to square them up. They just happened to fall back into place. The key is, like I said, always measure, try to get it close, but you just can't. These were never square to start with, but the key is getting this back and the front in a line with your frame. Once these are in line, whatever's going to happen in the middle is going to happen in the middle.